Hollywood Chamber of Commerce staff say it costs about $2,500 to repair the star. Evidence from some of LA's most sensational crimes can be viewed up close at the LAPD Museum. As Gil Reyes reports, the museum is also a shrine to our dedicated men and women in blue.
The Los Angeles Police Museum in Highland Park houses some of the most famous and infamous relics in department history. Our guide on this tour is retired LAPD Commander Bob Taylor.
This building was built in 1925, and it was known as Highland Park Station. And it operated as a full police station from 1925 up until late 1983, early 1984.
Now a museum, the memorabilia takes us all the way back to the LAPD's origins in the late 1800s.
This was a cowboy town, and so Levi's and shirts and cowboy hats and all that kind of stuff. So this was the first formal uniform that the department had. And so this is a picture of the officers and their uniform with their Remington rifles.
I noticed that the stereotype of the law enforcement officer with the mustache dates back.
Most of them, in the 1800s, they had beards and mustaches.
Now, why is that? Is that just the look?
I think they didn't want to shave. Don't forget, shave. You didn't have an electric razor. You couldn't go get a Gillette razor.
And so the classic look of the mustached LAPD cop has flourished ever since. Now, before women could join the force, LA had city mothers. They helped care for homeless kids. One city mother, Alice Stebbins Wells, went on to become the first female LAPD officer in 1910, the first female officer in the nation, for that matter.
When Alice came on, they didn't have a uniform store. So how could she get a uniform? She made her own uniforms.
How fast did another female officer come after she became an officer?
Very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. By, the 1920s, we had not only Alice Stebbins Wells, but we had the first African-American policewoman as well.
This is also a crime museum. One section dedicated to the 1963 Onion Field murder of Officer Ian Campbell. 2 revolvers involved in the Onion Field shooting are stored here. Another room tells the story of publishing heiress Patty Hearst. Hearst was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, then forced to join this terrorist group in a 1974 bank heist.
They found what the SLA members were armed with. So it included M1 carbines, M1A2 carbines, 38 caliber revolvers, 12-gauge shotgun, 45 caliber semi-automatic handguns. February 28th, 1997, 2 suspects entered the Bank of America in North Hollywood. And this is exactly what they looked like. This is what they were wearing. We've outfitted 2 mannequins so that people can see what they look like.
10 officers were injured in the North Hollywood shootout. The suspects were killed. Their bullet-riddled vehicle also parked at the museum.
And he was crouched down in front of this car, shooting at the officers who were located behind his car.
Right here.
Right here.
For anyone who's into LAPD history, or the history of Los Angeles for that matter, it would be criminal for you not to show up and visit this place. The museum is open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. In Highland Park, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Besides being open on weekdays, the museum is also open every 3rd weekend of the month. It's located at 6045 York Boulevard in Highland Park. A one-on-one with the woman who helps bring some of our most creative cultural events to the city. Rasha Goel has more on what has been her inspiration for success.
Have you ever noticed all the different cultural events that take place in Los Angeles? Well, there are over 1,300 actual events per year that serve 3 million people, all under the leadership of Danielle Brazel. Meet Danielle Brazel, General Manager of the city's Department of Cultural Affairs, a department that oversees many of the city's cultural activities and festivals, grants to artists, operates historic sites such as the Watts Towers, and much more. It was Brazel's artistic talents and experience that caught Mayor Eric Garcetti's eye. Danielle, you were appointed by Mayor Eric Garcetti in 2014 as the General Manager of the Department of Cultural Affairs. What has led up to this opportunity?
I started my career as an artist, and then as a teaching artist, and then as a producer, and then as an administrator, and then I moved into public policy, and You know, those are really the core aspects of what you need to understand and what you need to be a general manager of a city department.
Brazell grew up in the San Fernando Valley and graduated from Grover Cleveland High School, but she didn't have it easy.
In middle school, there was, again, a lot of chaos in my life. The house burned down, we were homeless for a while. My mom was in and out of the hospital, my father wasn't around, my sister was in and out of treatment and placement. And so the instability of my home life really shifted my focus. And so by the time I was in 9th grade, I had already dropped out. And so my academic career and my studies really suffered. I was really a smart and bright kid, but there was some extenuating circumstances.
Thanks to a friend who introduced her to a drama class, Brazell's life took a different turn. It was meeting with drama teacher Barbara Yannick that would impact Brazell for the rest of her life.
I was very scared, and I said, "My name is Danielle," and she put out her hand, looked me in the eye, and said, "Hello, Danielle, my name is Barbara." And it was the first time I had ever had a teacher look at me like a human being, take me in, give me respect. And then she immediately handed me her big wad of keys and asked me to go get her the slide projector, which of course I did, right, in the stage area. What was so extraordinary about that moment is she gave me the opportunity to be trusted, and I was hers. So from that day on, drama became very much my life.
Art has been an inspiration throughout her life. Today, she's excited to share her passion to help foster creativity in the city.
They create a sense of belonging. They inspire us. They connect us. They connect communities and people. They generate empathy for otherness in a way, and they create belonging. And so I like to say that the Department of Cultural Affairs is the city's belonging strategy.
From the Towers Day Drum Festival to the LA Opera, there's almost something for everyone in the City of Angels when it comes to the Department of Cultural Affairs. But an important aspect is promoting art and making it accessible for everyone.
We have 32 cultural facilities, from Barnsdall Art Park down to Watts Towers. Almost every corner of our city has a community arts center. Most of the time, those centers are providing arts education to communities that would otherwise not have access to arts education.
For young girls who are watching this, who may have been in a similar situation as you, what advice would you give to them?
Write. Write in your journal each and every day, and keep writing and keep telling the truth even if your voice shakes.
A piece of advice that perhaps could benefit all of us. In downtown Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
For more information on events put on by the Department of Cultural Affairs, visit culturela.org/events. Once a year, tens of thousands of people from every corner of the city converge in South LA for the Central Avenue Jazz Festival. This year brought together both old traditions and some new ones. Anna Marcos has more.
Central Avenue came alive with the cool and hot sounds of every kind of jazz ever improvised, syncopated, or strummed into existence. The 23rd Annual Central Avenue Jazz Festival lit up several blocks of Central Avenue in South LA.
I have come here a number of years, watching people not come back, like Gerald Wilson. He was one of my favorites.
The place does seem to draw people back year after year.
I've been coming here since the inception, and it has grown quite a bit.
And there were plenty of new things this year as the Jazz Festival has continued to expand. Drumming lessons made their grand debut for anyone with Buddy Rich aspirations, or anyone who just wanted to learn to play along to the beat.
First of all, I think it just underscores the importance of arts in our community, whether it's dancing, music, spoken word, the arts. It changes the perception that people have about their community. The arts makes them feel positive, more productive, more collaborative.
A business and job pavilion, a youth pavilion for the young uns, an arts pavilion, yummy food, street soccer. It was a one-stop feel-good shop for everyone. An oasis of fun and good times that couldn't help but get musical juices flowing, feet tapping, and bodies moving. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
And best of all, the festival was free. It's a salute to the trains and railroads of California and a chance for Metro to toot its own horn. Thousands attended the Union Station's annual Train Fest.
20,000 die-hard train lovers hopped on board for the second annual Union Station Summer Train Fest. Some came from as far as Corona or places beyond.
Oh yeah, I've loved trains all my life. I had trains when I was little, and I think it's exciting. We brought some friends with us, and they love trains, and we came here on a train.
The theme this year, Dreams in Motion, showcased restored and antique locomotive engines and cars, especially those from the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
We like train travel. We've enjoyed several long train trips, and so we decided to come here and check out the Rail Fest.
And I enjoyed seeing the California Zephyr.
Why?
Because it's a big, shiny train.
Big, beautiful train, huh?
But it was the tiny tracks and little trains that fascinated some people. And there were plenty of model trains to choose from, complete with bridges, towns, and even a tight situation or two.
It's just a really fun event. You can see the kids here are having a great time.
Virtual reality train rides and kids' activities, including a tank engine play area, made for a heck of a ride through Trainland, past, present, and future. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
A new report says the city of LA needs to improve its hiring practices. The Department of Rec and Parks gets a $1 million grant, and it's not too late to teach your kids to swim. All these stories in City Beat. A new report says the city of Los Angeles needs to modernize its hiring practices and do more to recruit women. City Controller Ron Galperin found that the civil service hiring process takes an average of more than 7 months to complete. He also says the city's workforce doesn't represent the gender breakdown of Los Angeles, where women are half the population, but just 35% of the city's workforce. Galperin said that the ability of our city to serve our residents, businesses, and visitors depends first and foremost on attracting and retaining the very best people to work for our city departments. The City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks was awarded a $1.3 million Fire, Urban, and Community Forestry Program grant. These funds will go toward the City of Los Angeles park tree inventory, tree planting, and education. Rec and Parks will develop a comprehensive park tree inventory system and work with community partners to engage local communities through public tree planting events and tree care educational workshops. There will also be workforce and job training opportunities for low-income youth in tree education. You can still get your kids swimming this summer. Mayor Eric Garcetti has set a goal to create a healthier Los Angeles by offering more health and wellness activities for LA kids. This includes increasing participation in sports and recreation, starting with Swim LA, because every child deserves the opportunity to learn how to swim. Swim LA creates a safer and healthier Los Angeles by teaching kids to swim, reducing the risk of drowning, and increasing water safety education. Scholarships are available to those that demonstrate financial need. To find a pool closest to you, visit swimla.org. Well, it's a way to drum up business and give Angelenos a taste of Asian cooking and culture. Anna Marcos takes us to the delicious Little Tokyo event as it kicked off a busy weekend.
The Far East flavor was on full display and business was booming. As Little Tokyo kicked off its delicious Little Tokyo event, 2 days of exotic food tasting, cooking lessons, and more.
We've partnered with a lot of the businesses to do workshops and demos, tours, and tastings to provide a unique experience for people.
And even though it was in Little Tokyo, this Oriental smorgasbord was not limited to Japanese food. This Indonesian restaurant provided some of the culinary action. And for those who like to eat, drink, and be merry, this sake bar gave you sake any way you like it. Hot sake, warm sake, draft sake. by the glass or from a dispenser, and of course, sake with food. There were even lessons on what sake goes with what tasty delicacy.
The third item is going to be a miso baby back rib that we're pairing with a bolder sake. The miso ribs are going to have a saltiness and an umami character to it.
I didn't understand all of that, but I heard miso baby back ribs and sake.
If our customers come in and they're able to learn something about sake and pairings, then their whole experience is, it has been enhanced. And we feel that they will come back time and time again.
A lot of Asian deliciousness plus a little boost for business made Delicious Little Tokyo a winning recipe. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The event was organized by Go Little Tokyo, a community-led effort to highlight the unique culture of the neighborhood. Dozens of restaurants and businesses took part. Well, grab your pajamas for a slumber party under the stars. They're not the Eagles, but they sure sound a lot like them. Watch them perform at Warner Center Park and enjoy the works of Mexican artist Frida Kahlo. All this in this week's Things to Do. It's double, toil and trouble, and then some with witches all night long. The summer tradition is back with Sinespia's 8th annual slumber party, so assemble your crew for a night that's wicked and wondrous in all the right ways. The event begins with the movie The Craft. Then at midnight, it's time for some practical magic, starring Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. And at 2 a.m., the Witches of Eastwick caps the night. Cher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Susan Sarandon, who unite to wreak delicious havoc on Little Devil Jack Nicholson to teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Magic fills Hollywood forever with a specially conjured photo booth. All the fun takes place Saturday, August 11th, starting at 7 p.m. at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Since their debut in 1999, the long-run experience The Eagles has earned its place among the top-drawing tribute acts in North America and is widely regarded as the finest Eagles tribute show working today. Their 90-minute live concert for the hit TV show The World's Greatest Tribute Bands was broadcast to millions of viewers over 5 countries and received some of the highest ratings in the series' history. Marked by lush vocal harmonies and exceptional musical accuracy, every TLR performance delivers a reverence for the beloved Eagles studio recordings blended with the long run's own live concert personality. Watch them perform on Sunday, August 12th at the Warner Center Park. Frida Kahlo Under the Stars comes to La Plaza y Cultura y Artes in downtown LA on Saturday, August 11th for an evening dedicated to this iconic Mexican artist. Featuring a fully illustrated lecture, this event caters to Frida fans. Check out a kaleidoscope portrait of Frida with more than 300 slides of her paintings and documentary photographs, as well as rare film footage. This exhibition is presented by Gregorio Luque, an expert on Mexican and Latin American art and culture. The exhibit runs August 11th from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kane from all of us here at LA This Week. Thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacitywiew.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lamert Park. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Los indios dicen que el río está cerca. We enter a spacious valley, well grown with cottonwoods and alders, among which run a beautiful river. This plain where the river runs is very extensive. It has good land for planting all kinds of grain and seeds, and is the most suitable site of all that we have seen for a mission, but it has all the requisites for a large settlement. Father Juan Crespi, 1769.
thank you all for being here. Today is Friday, August 10th. Madam Clerk, if we can please call the roll.
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Harris Dawson, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rodriguez, Rue, Wesson, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Great, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay, Councilmember Harris Dawson moves. Councilmember Huizar seconds. Next item, please.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Price moves. Councilmember Wesson seconds. Next item, please.
Items 1 through 9 are items for which public hearings have been held. The committee reports for items 2, 3, and 9 have been submitted, posted, and circulated for council's consideration.
Okay, members, those items are before us. Do we have any specials? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the roll on those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 10 through 20 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration,
Okay,
sir.
we'll go ahead and open the roll for consideration on those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved.
There is a request, Mr. President, to refer item 11 back to the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee for further consideration, sir.
Okay, then is that request by Mr. Koretz? Okay, then we'll go ahead and, without objection, that'll be the order.
That leaves items 10, 12 through 20. Those have cards, sir.
Okay, we'll go ahead and hold those on the desk for cards.
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations, items called special or public comment, sir.
We'll go ahead and go into presentations. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Huizar.
Could reconsider number 8 and call that special, please? We have an amended motion on that?
No, it's too late for that, Mr. Huizar.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open the roll for
I owe you one,
reconsideration
Mr.
on item
President.
8.
Thank you.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, then that's before us. I'm sorry, you wanted to hear that now? Mr. Huizar, did you want to hear that now or hold that on the desk?
Hold it on the desk, please.
Okay, we'll go ahead and hold that. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go into public comment then. We'll go into multiple speaker cards first. Armando Herman. Items 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, Will, you've got every 16, 17, 19, and 20.
There, sir? Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So we all know about item 18, a motion by Rue and Mommy, funding to support National Women's 48th Annual Conference. Well, what do we know about Women's Annual Conference? We know that women have the same rights as men. We're all equal. And that there's no segregation whether we're disabled women or disabled men, right? And due to the transfer of appropriate funds of $2,500, we know that Assembly Bill 1290 is not the same as Assembly Bill for Gilbert Cedillo, but the board has the Commission on the Status of Women to make my corrections. And my corrections are politically correct, that no man should rape any woman in the city of Los Angeles, Rue. And then on item 19, in CD4, Mommy, again, funding to support Ready Your LA Neighborhood program. Well, what does Ready LA Your program mean? It means that I have in my hand 14 copies, with one for the city attorney, dealing with my neighborhood program. And for the record, I'd like to state it in your own language, Mr. Zulu Dawson, and that of the Hebrews, Mr. Englander. So, Sergeant of Arms, for the record, I'm submitting in their language a neighborhood program that deals with how to appropriate funds that actually work to make jobs. And due to the account number of redevelopment projects, as you heard up in the valley yesterday as I sat in on the Planning Commission, there were 3 items bunched together. And as a result, no more solars in the hills due to contamination and damage. After all, Mommy, you can't do it behind the public's back. Then I go into item 17, another rule, and that of one California lawyer who doesn't practice law in California, funding for various street maintenance. Well, how can we have street maintenance when Paul Krikorian, the Armenian that I submitted for the record, as I handed out, as you saw, for the record, neighborhood programs that deal with council districts in CD2 on conservation conversation in the courts.
All right, 1 minute of general public comment.
We know what happens to people who take advantage of the homeless. Measure HHH. Bitch, bitch, bitch. And I'm here for one purpose, and that's to bitch. As my psychologist in psychology told me, it's good to vent. As you heard in the adjournment yesterday, what Herman Jason Wesson said about his brother-in-law and myself. I'm here begging for help. Mommy, 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 mom, mommy, to help the poor soul of Herman, who has what? Defaulted on his Discovery card, who's defaulted on 2 mortgages. And I cry out to poor Herman, you need help, brother. You need help. Fucking cut short the watermelon, nigger, and do your job. Stop the plantation niggers, and that's the white niggers, from taking advantage of public interest.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Before I call the next speaker, I want to also, I know we have some presentations coming up, so we have some special guests here for the presentations. For those of you who have never been to council chambers, are there any folks who have never been here before that are in the audience? All right, well, welcome to public comment. And the introduction to free speech. So while we call up our next speaker, I want to thank you all for being here today and to experience democracy. So with that, if we could have Mr. Previn. Eric? Eric, please stay on your items once again, as we do ask every time, every day that you're here. 12, 13, 15, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. It's item number 20 that caught my attention this morning. It's about the 2018 neighborhood council elections. Now, what you've got here, Greater Wilshire, now you're moving some money, $1,500, into the account. Mr. Rue is doing it. Now, we have requested from the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment an opportunity to amend our bylaws in connection with reform with this item 20, because it shows that people are being able to move money from 2018 to 2019. We were disadvantaged in that we did not have a chance to modify our bylaws, so we've asked the mayor in connection with waiving the moratorium on reform, which is in place, to help with that, and hopefully he will, or Mr. Rue will. Item number 19, good work. This is Ready Your LA Neighborhood Program, and this is critically important, especially now with the Cal fires raging up and down the state. It is, in a word, frightening. So any fire prevention ideas you have, sir, while you're not busy shutting folks down, you should bring forward at this time, and we should incorporate them into this program, certainly, because people are really worried. And I just want to say thanks to the folks who are doing the National Association of Commissions. We're going to make available $2,500 thanks to David Rue for that convention, or association convention. But if we could just earmark what for, because it's very general. It doesn't, I mean, is it going to the organization? Are they going out for dinner afterwards? It's a lot of money. And I would ask them to dedicate this $2,500 donation to preventing a program to put a facility in Mira Loma called the Women's Detention Facility on ice. It is a terrible, terrible plan to deport women from Los Angeles who are incarcerated for minor offenses into an area where they're vulnerable to something called valley fever that the state of California, sir, I think you're familiar with that group, has found this cocci is in the soil increasingly as the heat rages and so on and so forth. So bad idea. Let's dedicate it to not deporting women for low-level offenses to a place where they're potentially vulnerable. You may know that women who are of a Filipino descent, who are pregnant, any women who are pregnant, and think if it's possible for a woman to go to jail, not even sure that she's pregnant. So we really don't want this vulnerable set of people to be put in a involuntary, dangerous situation. I think Blumenfield is following, and I appreciate that. Now, I do appreciate also that we've got a lot of donations from the animal groups today. Thank you, Mr. Ebenstein, Mr. Kretz. You have been shaking the purses upside down. We got Annenberg to finally unload 50 grand. We have 200,000 coming in from Pierce College, I believe, if that's right. Maybe not. No, that's not right. It's the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, known as the ASPCA, who've come up with the 200 grand. But Pierce College is also offering shelter. And speaking of offering shelter, the HHH item is on the agenda today. Shanice Knowles being added to the panel of civilian overseers. But what happened to Miss Tiffany Boyd? She was doing a great job.
Okay, it's 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you, sir. For general public comment, I have to raise a point about legal battling here in the city of Los Angeles. What we're facing is a city council who may or may not be fully informed about the details of the cases that they're being asked to consider at an increasingly high rate in the Budget and Finance Committee and the Claims Board. And so the question has arisen, is the Claims Board merely an advisory group, or do they, because what we have is we have Herb Wesson, who's supposed to send someone, and he sends Krikorian, who is also the guy who chairs the Budget and Finance. And sometimes, like with the case of the Weintraub lien, waiver of his costs, it comes right to council, and there's almost no time for the public or any of the council members to have any idea what's going on. Now, this is also happening at the County of Los Angeles, which is why we're really looking closely at the policy about what is delegated authority for legal. I know this is a little bit in the weeds for some folks, but it's important for me to get it on the record, sir, and you certainly, if anyone, know about the inappropriate legal fighting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gus. 13 and 18.
Council members, good morning. Daniel Gus. I write a column for City Watch LA. Item number 13, $200,000 from the ASPCA. But just last week, Mayor Garcetti said that LA is no-kill. So why are you waiving shelter fees if LA is no-kill? If you're not killing animals, why are you providing the incentive, Mr. Koretz? Mr. Wesson, why are you waiving fees if LA is no-kill? Or is the whole no-kill thing just a big lie? Well, that's exactly what it is. The reason why the city of LA secured $200,000 for shelter fee waivers is because, as you saw in the news over the weekend, the shelters are filled to capacity and they are killing animals. That's why you got $200,000 for fee waivers, not because you're not killing, but because you're killing and lying to the public about it. Be honest about it. Turn down the 200 grand if you're not killing animals. You're not going to turn it down because you are killing animals. Have the courage to admit it. Item number 18, about this Commission for Women's Conference. Well, Mr. Huizar's wife is on that commission. And Mr. Huizar needs to recuse himself from that vote because he can't vote on something, Mr. Huizar, that his wife would benefit from. Now, about Rochelle Huizar, who, by the way, is Rochelle Rios in the in the State Bar Association, she left early on the first day of her appointment on this commission. She's not attending these meetings and staying. She left her first meeting. Why is she on this? Is it just for show because she's a politician's wife and you want to position her to maybe run for his seat someday? You are hypocrites if you let Rochelle Rios Huizar stay on this commission. And my general comment. Well, a trap was set for...
That was your general public comment. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you please restart my clock, please? So the LA Times is writing today that Mr. Wesson improperly used LAPD resources for security for his son's wedding. And the Times didn't write about it, so I set them a trap. On Tuesday, I asked Wesson's office about these inappropriately used LAPD resources. The next morning, the LAPD gets a call from Zonizer and Winton at the LA Times at 11:19 a.m., proving that the LA Times, Richard Winton and David Zonizer, are patsies for Mr. Wesson's office because they wanted to do damage control about misuse of LAPD resources. The problem with this article is now, this is unreported income on Mr. Wesson's part. He received a personal benefit outside the scope of his job. He's now going to be taxed on this unreported income.
All right, thank you very much. Brian Barajas. Mr. Koretz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to correct the misinformation that we just got from that last speaker. And I'm losing my voice if I sound a little different than usual. The city of Los Angeles has never claimed that we were no-kill. We just said that we had achieved those numbers, but it doesn't mean that we are able to continue to be that under all circumstances. And in particular, we had several hoarding busts. We introduced a number of additional animals, and we are indeed at capacity. But that doesn't mean that we won't be back under those numbers at points in the future, and that is not our continual goal. But so that is absolutely misinformation, that we are claiming that we never kill an animal, or that we're never above those numbers. But we strive to be so.
Thank you for the public announcement, Mr. Koretz, and also whoever stole your voice. So, Mr. Barajas.
You should try some bel canto. So let me just briefly say this, that the LaRouche Political Action Committee has endorsed 2 candidates for federal office, congressional candidates Keisha Rogers in Houston, Texas, running against Al Green, and Ron Rosorick in South Carolina. For the members of the audience, I have to say this, that the physical economy around the world has shifted to the Belt and Road, which, by example of China, has uplifted 700 million people out of poverty, which, by the way, is due to the fact that they kicked out Wall Streeters, just like FDR. We should be committed back to that principle of the Glass-Steagall Act, which was the very act that was repealed by Bill Clinton, 99, but which eliminated the speculation in banks. We need to return to that. Well, the reason I bring this up is because I'm running to help candidate Keisha Rogers win. Let's win.
Great, thank you. Lucille? Lucille? No longer here? Okay, we'll take your name off. And then our final speaker, Mr. Walsh. John?
John Walsh. As you know, the FBI is investigating Mark Ridley Thomas. Let me tell you why they're doing it. Because the mayor of the city of Los Angeles wants to get his black ass out of that seat so he can put Herb Wesson in there. Everybody knows it's true. So we are fighting to keep Mark Ridley Thomas in office. There's absolutely no reason that he should be thrown out. This is a game that the city is playing. How many people here want the mayor, Garcetti, to be the next president of the United States? I don't see a single hand went up. But he really thinks he can do it.
Thank you very much. Lucille, I suppose you're still here. If you want to come on up. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening to me. I'm going to make this real quick. I know I only have a minute. I have been working on this act, so to speak, with a vaudeville. His name was Enrico Caruso, and he had something to do with the Black Hand and stuff like that. I had this Charlie McCarthy doll working on this act. He has switched up. He worked his mouth and everything to a doll that doesn't have this voice box anymore. So when you didn't say my last name, it really, because that's exactly what I came to talk about. Okay, I'll follow up later. I emailed Mr. Weston about it. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here. That concludes public comment on all the items, including general public comment. So with that, colleagues, we'll go ahead and open the roll on the remaining items. By the way, before I do that, 8A has been circulated. So I want to let you know 8A has been circulated. So we'll go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. We're going to go ahead and go on to our presentations now. CD4 is first. Okay. Councilmember Ryu, the floor is yours.
Okay, right there. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, City Council, and good morning, colleagues. And happy Korean Independence Day. This year marks the 73rd anniversary of Korea's independence from Japanese colonial rule. It is a day that we call Gwangbokjeol, which literally means the day the light returned. This is the day we celebrate Korean history and culture and the strength of the Korean people. It makes sense then that we celebrate this day here in Los Angeles, a city with more Koreans than anywhere outside of Korea. This city that is deeply influenced by its Korean American community, and we are all better for it. Korean Americans are entrepreneurs, master chefs, teachers, inventors, but most of all, they are deeply invested in the community, in caring for the elderly, and to improving life for the next generation, like so many other communities. The hundreds of thousands of Korean Americans in Los Angeles are a ray of light that keeps our city and our region shining. This is true from Porter Ranch in Councilmember Englander's district, to Koreatown, to the Friendship Bell in Councilmember Joe Buscaino's district. That stands for the deep and lasting friendship between the United States and Korea. So whether you're Korean American or not, whether you dance to K-pop, whether you eat Korean barbecue, or watch K-dramas, happy Korean Independence Day. But now I'd like to recognize the many organizations that are here today to join in the celebration. We have representatives from the Korean American Federation, the Office of the Consul General of the Republic of Korea, the Heritage of Korean Independence Southwest Region, the Korean American Chamber of Commerce Los Angeles, Pyeongtong, the Korean National Association Memorial Foundation, 3.1 Women's Association, the Southern California of Korean Ministers Association, the Association of Republic of the Korea Army, the Korean American Public Action Committee, and the Korean American Foundation of the United States, of USA. Now, I'd like to invite President Laura Jun of the Korean American Federation to say a few words. Laura?
Good morning, honorable council members. First, on behalf of the Korean American community and the Korean Federation of Los Angeles, I'd like to thank the council president for your willingness to work together to resolve one of the most pressing issues of our city is facing. Our community is ready to work with you and the city to design a model bridge home which every community can follow. It is also my honor and pleasure to be here representing the Korean American Federation of Los Angeles to thank you for celebrating the 73rd Korean Independence Day. Today is symbolic for all Koreans across the globe. On August 15th, 1945, the Korean Peninsula was liberated by our allies from 36 years of Japanese colonial rule, and autonomy was rightfully restored. The city of Los Angeles shares a historical connection to Korean independence. We are honored and grateful for several landmarks named after notable Korean American Angelenos, such as the Dosan Anchangho Post Office, Sammy Lee Square and Dr. Sammy Lee Medical and Health Science Magnet School, and Young-ho Kim Academy and the Colonel Young-ho Kim U.S. Army Memorial Highway in neighboring Orange County. Our city's greatest strength has always been its openness. Los Angeles has been a true sanctuary for those fleeing oppression, and seeking freedom, a place for people to follow their dreams. As we celebrate Korean Independence Day, we also acknowledge and appreciate the city that has embraced the many Korean Americans who have come to call Los Angeles home. So on behalf of the Korean American community, I would like to commend Council President Wesson and the honorable council members for passing this resolution to proclaim the 73rd anniversary of Korean Independence Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Laura. And now, the Honorable Deputy Consul General of the Republic of Korea, Mr. In Sang-hwang.
Good morning, honorable members of LA City Council and my fellow citizens of the great city of LA. It is my pleasure to be here today to witness the Korean Independence Day resolution adopted by LA City Council. On behalf of the Korean government and Korean people, I'd like to thank the LA City Council for adopting this great resolution to recognize and respect Korean people's sacred fight for sovereignty, democracy, and independence during the Japanese colonial rule. We believe that Korean independence in 1945 was not just given by the end of World War II. This was the reward for sacrifices, dedication, and blood of our patriotic forefathers in Korean Peninsula and from abroad, including here in the United States. Today, we have some of their descendants. The great spirit of this independence movement later on became the solid basis of Korea's economic miracle and democratization, helping to create today's Korea. Korea used to be one of the poorest countries in the world. Now it has become world's 11th largest economy. And Korea is proud of being the only country that has achieved both democracy and rapid economic growth from scratch after World War II. When it comes to LA, Korea has a special partnership with LA. LA is the largest Korean city outside the Korean Peninsula, especially the city mayor. Mr. Gassetti's recent visit to Korea has upgraded this special partnership to a higher level. Taking this opportunity, I'd like to appreciate the contribution of the Korean Americans to the local communities, which made today's special partnership possible. With endurance, fortitude, and discipline, they have helped to convert remote areas into flourishing communities by bringing economic prosperity, cultural diversity, and educational accomplishment. I'm sure today's resolution on Korean Independence Day reaffirms this special relationship and provides an opportunity to celebrate the great contribution of the Koreans and Korean Americans to the city of LA and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Counsel. Finally, we have Mr. Young Park of the Korean Heritage of Korean Independence.
Okay, and we do have Mr. Wesson wanted to pipe in here real quick, so.
I will let Mr. Park go first.
Okay, there you go.
Chairman Mr. Wesson and councilmen, beginning in 1910, Korea was under colonial rule for 36 years, lasting until August 15, 1945. This rule was oppressive, and the Koreans had no freedom at all. The Koreans resisted this oppression, and the fight for freedom began in March of 1910. With the 1919, I'm correcting, with the independence movement. 2 months later, a similar independence movement broke out in China. In 1930, the non-violence resistance movement was brought on by Gandhi in India. And in 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led us through our very own civil rights movement here in America. Each of these movements, though in different times and places of the world, hold the shared experience of deep struggle and great sacrifice, yielding lasting improvements to basic freedoms and human rights. I salute you for acknowledging the significance of Korean Independence Day in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Park, and I know Council President Wesson wanted to speak.
I want to thank you, Mr. President, for acknowledging me. I want to thank Mr. Ryu for not only making history, becoming the first member of the Korean American community to sit around this horseshoe, but I also salute you for bringing in so many great people, and I think that it's very, very important that we celebrate Korean Independence Day. Let's give another round of applause. But I just want to go, and it's always a pleasure to see Mr. Park and Mr. Kim, so many of you dear friends for a long time. But I want to go off script for a second to just mention Laura Jung, who is the leader of one of the largest Korean organizations, the Korean American Federation in the city of Los Angeles. And I want to thank you and all of your members from all of the Korean organizations that came together as we as a city are grappling with homelessness. They came together with me, and we argued and we fussed and we fight and we talked and we had coffee, and together we came up with a plan that has brought everyone together. And I think that example shows that as long as conversations are taking place, resolution is possible. And Laura played a very, very critical role in representing not just her community, but the city of LA. And I believe because of your work, we're going to be able to move forward with bridge housing that is going to set the standard for the city of Los Angeles. So I just want to thank you personally, and I want to thank all of you for working on what is the most important issue in the city of LA. So thank you very much. Congratulations, and happy Independence Day.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Now, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles and the entire City Council, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Korean Independence Day.
All right, let's give a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Mr. Rue. All right, while Mr. Koretz is coming up for the next presentation, just an announcement as well. We're going to reconsider item 8A to open up for public comment on 8A. So if we can open the roll for 8A, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, thank you very much. And then on that, I think we have one card, Mr. Previn. 8A. Seeing no other cards, you'll be the only speaker on 8A. There's no other requests. So we have one, and we'll close it out with you then.
We have one card. Thank you, sir.
1 minute.
This is Mobile Pit Stop, which was put in place with the hepatitis A outbreak in the new year. And it was for about 900 and something thousand, and then a little bit more. And I remember Elizabeth Chow in the Daily News wrote about how is it being allocated so that the various places where there are congregations of people who need to be washing their hands to avoid dragging it into the supermarkets was equitably distributed. Now, this was very quick because somebody just pinned it up on the board and they're jumping it up to 2-point-something million. So that means there's additional funds, and hopefully they'll be distributed in a way that the public has some input to, because when you do an amendment like that on the fly, it's not transparent. It's kind of fast and high rate. Now, I think people are very supportive of this work. There is a group called the Hunter Family, Point Family or something like that, that are receiving some of the funds for helping. But the scope of work, I don't know, the duration needs to be very clear to justify a $2 million scope of work on this, because there's about 8 locations and toilets.
All right, thank you very much. And our final speaker on this, Mr. Herman.
Thank you. So you see, folks, it's time to support homeless animals and homeless people when it comes to a contract with mobile pit stop programs. It's people like us that live on the street on a daily basis and show up at every meeting, every commission meeting, every council meeting, and give good points about homelessness, public's best interest, authorizing programs that actually work for $2 million. But unappropriate balances and a ceiling deficit is not going to fix the fucking problem, because you need an advocate and more advocacy to promote free speech without censorship from these motherfucking diaper assholes called politicians.
Okay, you're not on topic. Your time is over. Thank you very much. Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Mr. Krikorian. Okay, we have a request for item 14 to be sent forthwith without objection. That'll be the order. Thank you very much. Mr. Koretz, you are up. Actually, we'll go ahead and vote on item 8 again. We'll go ahead and open the roll as amended and circulated. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That's approved. All right, our final presentation, Mr. Koretz.
Hey, everybody come up and stand behind Chuck here.
I'll come in. And Jeff?
You guys can take your visitor tags off. It looks nicer if you take them off.
Hey. Oh, thank you. Well, let's see which voice I have. Actually, coming back, that's great. It's my honor to have known Chuck Levin, who I'm pleased to call my dear friend, for 45 years since we first met on Tom Bradley's first successful mayoral campaign. It gives me great pleasure to honor him for his incredible achievements and his tireless work, which has benefited so many Angelenos. And before we get into the reasons why we're here to honor Chuck, I want to point out the wealth and depth of people that have joined us today. People have come from as far as Washington, D.C. Also, Chuck is a friend of many, many elected officials. A couple of them are here with us. Scott Houston, a member of the West Basin Water District Board, and Cammie Foote, the Recorder Deputy of Inyo County. Just here at City Hall, to walk the halls with Chuck means you immediately make new friends, and seems to know people from everywhere who have either volunteered with him or are just one of his many good friends. And so today we have 3 council members, 2 so far, and President Weston should be joining us shortly. So we are among those who call him our dear friend, and recognize that he has made a lifetime of volunteer service of getting out the vote, which you can't do if you're not registered. And that's been Chuck's incredible volunteer life's work, getting people registered to vote regardless of party or color or creed or socioeconomic situation. He wants to empower everyone with the right to vote and to register. Chuck was born and raised in Los Angeles, and from the time he first registered to vote, he immediately became a volunteer deputy registrar of voters for LA County. Chuck has been incredibly dedicated to this cause, registering nearly 14,000 voters over 50 years, and he never stopped pursuing this civic cause. Chuck tirelessly encouraged high school and college students especially to register to vote. And in 1984, he formed a nonprofit, nonpartisan foundation called The First Vote as a way to expand his reach. And in 2011, Chuck was recognized by Dean Logan, the LA County Registrar of Voters, for his great work. In 1972, 1 year after the U.S. Constitution was amended, lowering the voting age from 21 to 18, Chuck organized a 72-hour voter registration marathon at 18 locations around the city, enlisting more than 60 volunteers to staff voter registration tables around the clock. And he personally registered voters for 72 hours without a break. I'm also pleased to tell you that I was delighted to know Chuck's wonderful mother, Sylvia, and she became a volunteer deputy of registrar of voters after filling in one weekend for Chuck. And she went on to devote 36 years to that service. And Chuck has been very successful, but she set the record, and she literally set the record, registering 40,000 voters personally in LA County, setting a record for close to that. Am I right or wrong?
We say more than 47,000.
Okay, more than 47,000, which is a record in LA County, the state of California, and the United States. For her incredible work, I nominated her to the Secretary of State's Hall of Fame, and she was selected by the then Secretary of State, Bill Jones, who gave her an honor, I believe it was a plaque, in front of Stan's Donuts in Westwood, where she registered voters for many, many, many years and spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours as one of her high-traffic locations. In 2016, Chuck became the first official volunteer deputy registrar of voters in Inyo County history, and registered voters at U.S. citizenship ceremonies held at Manzanar National Monument, and even hiked up to the High Sierra John Muir Wilderness to register hikers from around the country in time for the national election. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how dedicated Chuck has been to registering voters. I can't compare. The only thing I've done of significance is I have a great voter registration tie with a bunch of donkeys and elephants on it, all standing in line and waiting to cast their ballot. I'd like to ask Cami Foote, the Registrar Deputy at Inyo County, to say a few words as well.
Good morning, honorable council members. My name is Cami Foote, and I'm the elected clerk recorder and registrar of voters in Inyo County, California. I drove here this morning all the way from the Owens Valley to help recognize Chuck's phenomenal work. It's not often in your career that you come across a person so dedicated to democracy. I think it's telling and quite appropriate that Chuck has gone up to Inyo County, considering our long history between the city of LA and Inyo County, and I'm more than thrilled to be here. And thank you very much, Chuck, for all of your dedication over the years.
So we stole their water, and we gave back Chuck Levin to register some voters. I think that's a very even swap. And now I'd like to ask another very good friend of Chuck's, my colleague Bob Blumenfield, to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for putting this together for our wonderful friend Chuck. I haven't known him 40 years. I feel like I barely know you, only 20 plus years. So it's, you know.
Not bad.
Well, Chuck Levin, Voter Registration Day. Happy Voter Registration Day to everyone. We couldn't celebrate it better than having Chuck here. Congratulations on this much-deserved recognition. Thank you for all your hard work. In our democracy, there is no more sacred exercise than your right to vote. Over 50 years you've been doing this, and you've gotten over 14,000 people to vote, which is pretty incredible. The only person I've ever heard of who's outdone you, of course, is your mother. But you get credit for that because you turned her on to the whole thing. And so I'm going to give you credit for all over, 60,000 people, we'll say. Basically a small city you have registered to vote. It's pretty incredible. We should all aspire to emulate Chuck and do what we can to make sure as many of our fellow citizens as possible are registered to vote. Voting is one of the most important duties we have as citizens. Since the beginning of our republic, people have fought and died for the right to vote and have representation. And in many ways, the struggle continues today, especially if you're poor, older, or a person of color. With the recent Supreme Court case Shelby v. Holder, the court determined that the racial barriers and discriminations that we faced 53 years ago, right at the time when you were just getting into this voter registration game, apparently are no longer of concern. And they decided to gut key components of the Voting Rights Act. It's not a surprise that in 2016, the NAACP reported that voters saw 868 polling places closed by local authorities, including over 100 closed in Louisiana, almost 70 in Alabama, almost 400 in Texas. This forced many Americans to travel 20, 30, 40 miles just to cast their ballot. Additionally, today, 34 states have laws requesting or requiring some form of identification to vote, including 17 states that require voters to present a photo ID, while 17 others accept other forms of ID. Make no mistake, the right to vote is under attack, and we must not only continue to register new voters, but continue to fight voter suppression. Every election, we hear this is the most important election. But when you see what's happening in the world today, children ripped apart from their families at the border, put in cages, lopsided tax cuts being doled out to the richest of the rich, and a president who doesn't seem to believe in democratic values like freedom of speech or the freedom of the press and the expansive right to vote, this midterm election is very important. Another common phrase I've heard is that my vote doesn't count. Well, if we've learned anything from special elections over the past year and a half, it couldn't be further from the truth. We've had local elections here that have been decided by a couple of votes, literally. In April, just now, Congressman Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania won by just 600 votes. And elections that happen on Tuesday in Ohio and Kansas are still too close to call, with candidates separated by only 100 or so votes. Every vote counts. Every vote makes a difference. So please, do like Chuck. Help register voters. Here in California, we need to take advantage also of the technology to make it easier than ever to become a voter. We continue to embrace automatic voter registration, early voting, vote-by-mail accessibility. You can learn more about it at registertovote.ca.gov. And you should be inspired by what you've done, Chuck, and what all of you here who are engaged in registration are doing. Inspired to register people to vote, to change the world. That's how we do it. We register people to vote, and we have warriors like Chuck Levin on the front lines. Thank you, Chuck, for all you do, and happy Voter Registration Day.
We have Mr. Bonin on the queue as well, and then Mr.
Mr.
Bonin,
Weston,
and then
do
Mr. Weston.
you want to come up here to speak? He's was part of our presentation.
Mr.
Okay.
Bonin?
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Koretz, Mr. Blumenfield, Mr. Wesson, for bringing Chuck in. I'd be remiss if I didn't say a few words about Chuck and his incredible work. You inherited the family business, and generations pass different things down to their children. For some folks, it's a great recipe for a meal. In my case, my mom passed down her great-grandmother's sauce, tomato sauce, and your mom passed down a recipe for democracy, and she passed down a passion for people and making sure that our democracy is strong and vital. And man, you have picked up that torch and you have carried it. You are literally everywhere. I think Paul detailed it. I mean, you can't even take a walk in the woods without Chuck popping out and trying to register somebody to vote. And that's never been more important than now, because what's happening in this country now is there are folks in office, political parties, that really are very afraid of what the demographics of this country are going to result in. They are concerned that the demographics that this country is leaning towards are not going to be friendly to their agenda, so they're engaged in electoral engineering, and they are by the thousands across this country purging people from the voter rolls. And yours is an act of patriotism and an act of defiance and an act of love, and I just want to say thank you.
Mr. Wesson, there you are.
I met Mr. Koretz. I'm doing my Tom LaBonge impersonation today, moving around from seat to seat. First of all, I want to welcome all of you to City Hall and just speak a moment of a person that I've known, Chuck. I've probably known Chuck too long, okay, if there's a such thing. In fact, Chuck, it's unbelievable to me that you have been a volunteer registrar for 50 years. That's, I think, indicative of who he is. And I think that he got a lot of that from his mom, Sylvia, because I met them at the same time. And she would be the one on corners and don't take it wrong, on corners in Westwood with a table and chairs and registration forms and engaging people as they walk to and fro. And she'd have her son at her side, and his hair was every bit as white then as it is now. I think he was born with white hair. You have been a personal friend of mine since 1988. And one of the things that I love most about him, Paul and Bob, is that when he's with you, he's with you. The odds could be 1,000 to 2. Chuck is the 2. And he will be with you to the bitter end. Rarely do you come across people like that. Rarely do you come across people that spend a lifetime trying to make the democratic process work. So this honor is well overdue, and I just wanted to lend my voice to all of the others that have seen you, and God, she's looking down on us at freeway off-ramps, at the corners of, I can see you right now on Westwood and Pico Boulevard. I want to say that is the first time that I came out and met you. So anyway, congratulations, and I'll come back when we celebrate your 100th. Anyway, let's give Chuck and the group another round of applause.
And Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Wesson, why don't you both come up as friends of Chuck's and join us? as I declare Chuck Levin and Voter Registration Day in the city of Los Angeles.
Moving around, my turn?
Your
This
turn.
one's going right to Chuck, so you gotta look at me.
Thank you, Ally. Thank you,
Okay,
Vern.
over to
Thank
the
you,
right.
Bob.
Thank you.
Okay.
Looking over here.
Okay.
V for vote.
Two votes. Everybody vote.
Just one per person, Mr. Wesson.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
All right, let's give him another round of applause. That's extraordinary. What an achievement. That is absolutely remarkable.
Mr. President, thank you very, very much, the City Council of Los Angeles, my hometown. Thank you, my dear friend Paul Koretz, Council President Herb Wesson, and Council Member Bob Blumenfield for sponsoring this resolution recognizing my 50 years. It's an honor. It is a real honor. People like myself all over the city and all over the country don't do our volunteer work, aren't passionate about our causes because we seek honor, but it's a special privilege to get that recognition. I'm not going to stop registering voters. I've been doing it every week for 50 years. There's more to do. There's an estimated number of 50 million people in the country who are eligible to vote and aren't registered. We have work to do. In California, there's more than 6 million people who are eligible to vote and aren't registered. I'm in the process these last 50 years of registering them one at a time, and I'm going to continue doing it. And as Councilmember Blumenfeld said, we have a lot of different ways that you can register to vote. You can go online, you can go to the DMV, a little bit of it is automatic. But if you happen to see me on the streets at Stan's Donuts or at Bang Nai Thai in Chinatown, I'm in the Malibu Post Office, I'm at the Hollywood Farmers Market, wherever you are, I'm delighted to help you become a registered voter. It only takes 2 minutes. This is your right. Take advantage of it. It's a privilege. Not everybody's entitled, but it's also your responsibility. Last comment, Mr. President. These are the words, as good as any words that I can say. I wrote this 1984. Pretty simple and important. Register to vote and vote in every election. I'm for that. Thank you for proclaiming Voter Registration Day in LA. Thank you very much. Okay. The after party?
All right, thank you very much. I believe council has motions for posting and referral. We'll post and refer those. Do we have announcements, Mr. Bonin?
Thank you, Mr. President. As the summer draws to a close, I wanted to bring into chambers today a number of the interns who've been working in my office, helping on legislative matters, helping constituents cut red tape and get things done. They are all standing behind me. There we go. Wanted to give a shout out to Kieran Althouse and Ashley Alvarez and Chaya Brennan Agarwal and Zachary Garay and Jake Persino and Alex Olivier, and thank them for all the incredible work they have done and continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Farrell.
President, I just wanted to announce that tomorrow evening is my second in a summer series of films at Echo Park Lake, and we are screening Wonder Woman at 8 o'clock. The theme this summer is powerful women and heroines. A couple of weeks ago, we screened A League of Their Own. Following Wonder Woman, we're going to screen Hidden Figures, and we'll close the series with Norma Ray. But tomorrow night, it's a Wonder Woman, 8 o'clock, Echo Park Lake. It's free. There's free popcorn. Bring the family and enjoy the film.
Okay, thank you very much.
Go, man, go.
Yes. Joe.
Thank you.
Another reminder of, I appreciate Mr. Bonin for reminding us the value that interns bring to our respective offices. For me, I want to call up John Mark, his last day with us. Spent time with Dennis Gleason, my policy director. John, get over here, bud. Pride and joy of Little Rock, Arkansas, and attends Rhodes College in Memphis, and he wants to come out west. So we recognize John Mark for his commitment to the people of the 15th Council District. Thank you, John Mark, for your working with Dennis and Laura, and we're hoping that what you learned here in the last several weeks will carry you on a lifetime in policy and public service. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you
John
very
Mark.
much. Thank you to all the interns for the summer. Thank you. In all the offices. I know everybody has an extensive program, so appreciate that. Seeing no other announcements, we can get we have one more? Yes, Mr. Kokorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just wanted to announce that tomorrow afternoon and evening from 3 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Lankershim Boulevard will be closed between Chandler and Magnolia for the NoHo Block Party. This is going to be an opportunity for people to come out and enjoy free theater, art, music, walk along Lankershim, great food. So I hope everybody will come on out tomorrow afternoon, Saturday, August 11th, from 3 to 10 p.m. For the first NoHo Block Party on Lankershim Boulevard.
Looks like a great event.
Fantastic.
I saw the posting.
All right, if we can ask everybody to please rise for adjourning motions. Excuse me, sergeants, if you could escort out whoever's making the noises. We are standing up for adjourning motions, so go ahead and escort them out. The animal noises. Mr. Spindler, you too, I can hear you all the way over from here, so it's both of you. And now you're yelling out, so go ahead, escort them out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead and escort them out. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please escort Mr. Spindler out as well. Thank you. We'll take a pause and while they're being escorted out.
And Mr. President, for the record, Mr. Spindler and Mr. Herman are continuing to shout and scream as they exit the chambers. In case the camera can't catch that, they're walking very slowly and are continuing to shout and scream and continue to shout and scream and are continuing to shout and scream.
As we rise for adjourning motions, my condolences to the families who had to wait. It's one of the most, I think, important times during our meetings when we officially adjourn a meeting for losing someone in our community, in our city, or someone of perhaps greatness somewhere else as well, that were disrupted by the same two gadflies in every single meeting. And it's a sign of disrespect. And on behalf of the council, apologize to families and those who have lost folks that we're adjourning for. With that, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I'd like to adjourn this meeting in honor of Aberdeen Thomas. Aberdeen, known to friends as Abby, was born in Chicago in 1953. At a young age, she developed a strong passion for civil rights. Being raised on Chicago's South Side gave her an education in injustice and a drive to achieve against all odds. Abby was smart. She was motivated. She wanted to see the world and meet new people. So after graduating from Chicago Vocational High School, she took a job with the Internal Revenue Service in Los Angeles. And like so many others, came to Los Angeles seeking a new life. Through church and community, Abby made many friends in Los Angeles, and one man in particular was Joe Lucky Jr. Soon after, their son, Joe Lucky III, was born in 1987 and was Abby's pride and joy. Abby was known as smart, cunning, warm and nurturing, independent, and incredibly brave. She raised her son by herself and somehow found the time to cook for friends, go to church on Sundays, and join a book club. In 2016, Abby retired after 35 years with the IRS, but continued to help friends and family with their taxes. She passed away on May 26th of this year and is survived by her son Joe, his wife Rakina, and a host of family and friends. May she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, a colleague of mine on the League of California Cities Board of Directors, beloved wife, passed away. It's with heavy heart that we pay tribute and adjourn in the memory of Sandy Thorne, the wife of Pleasanton, California Mayor Jerry Thorne. Two were happily married for 40 years. Sandy passed away at the age of 80, surrounded by loved ones after a battle with cancer, devoted wife, mother, and friend of the Pleasanton community. All city flags in Pleasanton were flown at half-mast this week in honor of her significant contributions to the city. She was a board of directors of Pleasanton's Museum on Main and was actively engaged with the Assistance League of Amador Valley. In lieu of flowers, the Thorne family asked that donations be made to Sandy's name, the Museum on Main in Pleasanton. So our thoughts and prayer goes out to Mayor Jerry Thorne, and his family. May she rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Looking to my right, seeing no other adjourning motions. Looking to my left, I do have one. Colleagues, I will ask that this adjourning motion be signed by all members. I ask that we adjourn today in memory of Lola Mae Bush. Recently passed away at the young age of 93 on August 1st, 2018. Lola was born on September 10th, 1924 in Livingston, Tennessee, and then she married James Wilson Bush Sr. on January 21st, 1940. If you do the math, she was only 15 years old when she got married. 15 years old, and she became a mother 2 months after her 16th birthday. Lola had grown up quickly as a mother, supporting her family since James was in the Marine Corps and served the first wave of two in Iwo Jima during the World War II. Lola and James moved to the San Fernando Valley in 1954, where they continued to build their family and their home. She was a strong, loving, and caring woman, very protective, and she had a very big heart. Lola ate a very special menu, which probably and clearly, apparently, helped her to live a long life of almost 94 years. Get this. Lola had a donut and coffee every single morning. Combination then, following that throughout the day, of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, pizza, ice cream, cookies, and a Diet Coke. Those were her meals every day. 94 years. And she was a fashionista on top of that. She loved to shop for new clothes and shoes and always looked stylish. Her children, including our very own Frank Bush, learned a lot from her. He says the most important and impressive thing for him was her love, dedication, and faithfulness to her family. And wait till you hear how big her family had become. She was able to visit and spend quality time with all of them, all of her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, in the weeks before she passed away. And she went out of her way to express how much she loved each and every one of them. On Saturday, prior to her passing, she had over 25 visitors who would not leave her side. Lola was truly an angel in the city of angels, and she preceded by her death by her husband, James Wilson Bush Sr., and her daughter, Jane. She is survived by another daughter, Carol Sullivan, her 3 sons, James Bush Sr., Frank Bush, and John Bush, her 9 grandchildren, and her 23 great-grandchildren. She was 15 when she got married. She had her first child at 16. She passed away with 23 great-grandchildren. children, all of whom she was incredibly close with. She was truly loved and will always be remembered and will be missed by many. The Bush family will cherish her love and support and honor her during a memorial service on Saturday, August 11th at 11 a.m. in Nations Church in Northridge. I know as a city family, when one of our own grieve, we all grieve. One thing that hurt the most and I felt the most pain in learning about Lola is that the worst thing, the absolute worst thing in life, by far, bar none, is a child being lost before the parents, for a parent to bury a child. And she overcome, well, I don't know that she overcame that, but had to live with that. But remain close to her whole family. Frank, to your entire family, we love you, brother. We're with you. There's nothing that hurts so much like losing somebody we love so dear. And you were blessed to have a truly amazing mother. And may she rest in peace. So with that, colleagues, thank you very much. That adjourns our council meeting. Have a great weekend and be safe. Thank you.
About 99% of our clients are longshoremen. Then the other 1% is everybody else. Isaac opened back in the late 70s. The business was began by my mother and my father over 40 years ago now. My father, he worked on the docks, he worked at the canneries. So did my mother. My father used to take food from the house first.